been studying a lot to make sure that I give it its worth. I was unfortunately told that I can't work in IT or in the engineering industry due to my gender. That just ticked me off, Ben.
You don't say that to Sherifa.
But I was asked to present at the European Women Leadership Summit, and the whole event is around AI. That's when I had that aha moment, Ben. What am I going to say? All of us know what AI is. We understand that it's a different, very sophisticated language model that helps people. When you have to talk about it for 20 minutes, then you kind of think, okay, what am I really going to say? What is AI? Why is it important? What are the risks of AI? AI is the best thing that's going to happen. There are some consequences or risks. Yeah, I'm just putting some lipstick. It's always good to look like you're enjoying, that you're dressed up for the occasion. You know what I mean?
That's right. And my wife got me this device.
Yes.
Which gets all the bits off your clothing.
Yeah.
And who knew? You got all your podcasts set up, but you were missing a vital ingredient.
I've been studying a lot to make sure that I give it its worth.
Yeah, no, look, we thank you, Sherifa. I have had a list that I created when I started the podcast. I had this list of names that I created of people that I would love to bring onto the podcast who I've learned a ton from over the times that we've worked with one another, and your name was on that list, Sherifa. So thank you very much for
very honoured for that
time. And yeah, look, I think it's just good to have a good conversation. We've got this kind of AI thing on our hands now, haven't we?
Yes.
And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I just felt that kind of in sales, we'd been through cloud, we'd been through Internet of Things, we'd been through business intelligence, and then all of a sudden we've got AI on our hands, and all our customers are like, what's this thing? What do we do with it? How do we keep ourselves safe? What's going on? And I just felt there was a bit of a gap in the kind of market there on support for salespeople, because inevitably they get trained on the technology. But my interest is, what are the business outcomes that the customer's actually going to use this stuff for, right? And so we ran that session together, didn't we, for the early careers group, which is when we met. But yeah, tell the audience a little bit about your background, Sherifa, and what were those sort of key moments in your career that have kind of created you as the leader you are today?
Thanks, Ben. No, it's amazing to be here, and always, great to have conversations with people like you, Ben. So thanks for the invitation. Well, in summary, I'm an Egyptian citizen, born in the UK. An engineer, which I'm very proud of. I always thought I would invent something, never did, but working. Thank God for a company that does that every day. So, glad to be part of that. And, I'm really proud to be working for HPE that believes in advancing the way people work and live. And I'm sure we've seen, over the last, I would say, like you said, 10, 15 years, the digital revolution, how IT is playing such a pivotal role in everyone's life, be it personal, be it professional. So, yeah, I'm very happy to be where I am. If you ask me about my career or what I got there, after graduating from engineering, and it was difficult because it was in Arabic and I didn't really know the language, and suffered 5 years in engineering, and everyone who's an engineer knows that it's not an easy university. I was unfortunately told that I can't work in IT or in the engineering industry due to my gender. Now, that was many, many years ago, so thanks God we're not there anymore. Yeah. But that just ticked me off, Ben. You
don't say that to Sherifa. You just don't say those words. It's gonna make her more determined, not less, right?
Exactly. Thank you. So I think that was the pivotal point that really got me to say, I'm going to prove to myself, not to anyone, to myself, that I can be and work in whatever industry I want to, and then obviously making sure that other women don't have to go through that. So that's another thing that I love to do, is to mentor young female, or to talk to a lot of female, to tell them, the sky is the limit. You can be what you want to be. Obviously, you need to work hard. You need to be a little bit communicative of what you want to do, but so yeah, that's kind of, I would say,
Yeah.
my pivotal moments in my career.
Yeah, that's brilliant, and that kind of determination that you showed. I mean, literally, like most people, I guess, would experience that of, but unsaid, right? You experience the limitations, the glass ceiling because of gender, whatever,
Hmm.
but you were
Hmm.
actually told this is not happening because
Oh
you're not
yeah,
a man.
two multinational
You're not a man.
companies, Ben,
Oh
which are
wow.
very well known. Obviously, I will not shame them now. But yeah, it was a shock, because no one told me that 5 years before, when I was, grueling
Yeah.
studying at engineering. But thank God the times have changed.
Yeah, they have changed. And I should have said that you're now, so let me get this right. You're vice president for worldwide sales mid-market for Aruba, which is
Correct.
Aruba's a networking company, isn't it? That HPE
Correct.
acquired, and
Yeah,
but so that's your current role, right? You're leading on mid-market sales worldwide for Aruba.
correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
perfect, perfect. So you bring that kind of networks view to, or perspective to, this whole AI thing that's now happening, and of course, AI runs on networks, doesn't it? And
Absolutely.
one of the when we were talking about, well, what are the topics? What I was asking you, what's been your experience of having to kind of upskill yourself and be able to sort of talk AI. You told me about that conference that you were asked to speak at, I think in Amsterdam.
Yep.
And guess what? The subject is, hey, Sherifa, can we
Yeah.
bring you in to just do a talk in front of this giant audience about
30
AI?
minutes. 30
30
minutes to
minutes on
talk.
AI.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
said to me, that wasn't exactly my specialist subject at the time. So, and I felt that really resonated with me, because we've all had that moment now of, oh, heck, I've got to now go and be able to talk about AI, not the technology, but at the business outcomes level. And I thought that might be an interesting place to start, Sharifa, which is, what were your emotions when someone said, "Hey, we just want you to talk for 30 minutes about AI," and then what was your approach to kind of preparing for and then delivering, no doubt, a highly engaging talk there?
Yeah. So indeed, like you said, I was asked to present at the European Women Leadership Summit, and like I just said to you before, I'm very much an advocate of helping women, move up in their career. So of course, when they asked me to represent HPE on stage in front of, I think, 1,800 team, I said yes. I'm there, I'm coming. And at that time, I was managing the EMEA business for HPE Aruba. So obviously, it was the right thing for me to do. So signed up, travel, hotel, and then I kind of asked, okay, so what is my role there? And they said, well, you're going to be in part of the opening plenary session, and the whole event is around AI. Okay. So I now need to speak about HPE and obviously women in leadership, but mainly it's around AI. And actually, they went a step forward to say, how does is AI inclusive? Is it helping more women in leadership? So it was more catered to that. And that's when I had that aha moment, Ben. And what am I going
Yeah,
to say? Because
yeah,
I think all of us know what AI is. We understand that it's a different, very sophisticated language model that helps people. But then, when you have to talk about it for 20 minutes, then you kind of think, okay, what am I really going to say about AI? And that's what I was telling you. I then had to work on studying what is AI, why is it important, what are the risks of AI, because everyone seems to say AI is the best thing that's going to happen. Correct, but there are some consequences
Mm.
or risks or considerations that we need to think about. And that's when I started to say, okay, I need to study. So thankfully, our company had kind of a pamphlet or a user guide about AI, and it was really focused on how businesses can benefit from AI. What are the considerations, like I said? And there's two kinds of AI when we talk about inside our company. We've got AI for networking and networking for AI. When we talk about what does Aruba do, Ben, and one of
Mm.
them is how can AI facilitate the operations? So it's a pure benefit for the company. And then there's networking for AI, as in what networking solutions do you need to be able to provide AI for the company or for your customers? So yeah, it's complicated. It's not something that you can, just talk about. So yeah, a lot of studying was done, but thankfully I got good feedback on the conference, so I think it went well.
Yeah, that's really great, and I'm using this analogy, and I've said it before on the podcast, but I'm going to say it again. Anybody in sales, listen to Sherifa. She's talking about research. Every leader that's come on the podcast so far has said, "Hey, you've got to research," and the analogy I use is it's catching a wave. So, how do you
Mm,
catch a wave when you're surfing? Is
mm,
be positioned in the right place. And if
mm,
you work it doesn't matter the company actually, but if you work in technology, you're in sales, you're in consultancy, and you're somehow able to help customers adopt AI and get that
mm,
right and manage those risks,
mm.
then you're well positioned. So that's the first thing you need to do when you catch a wave. The next thing you need to do when you catch a wave is you need to paddle like crazy to catch that wave. And that's the research. And everybody, and you've just underlined it, has had to take a personal step of going, right,
Yeah.
I'm going to go research, because Aruba, your employer, didn't come along and say, hey, Sherifa, we'll pop you on this this AI training course. They'll train you about the
Yep.
products, but overall, the research, and you were talking about outcomes and helping improve lives, and maybe we could just
Hmm.
sort of touch on that aspect of it, and because that's
Absolutely, Ben.
ultimately what needs to happen with AI, isn't it? So there'll be productivity outcomes, but there also needs to be the improvement of people's lives. What's your perspective on that,
Yeah.
Sharifa?
So now I can answer that question because I did the research, Ben. And before that, I
Yeah.
would say, well, well, first of all, let me share with you a personal benefit. I'm usually suffering from sinuses. I've got asthma, so my nose is blocked a lot of times. And I went to do a CT scan just to see my sinuses. I did the CT scan. They sent me the CT scan X-ray, and I had to see the doctor after the weekend. Now, I'm a very impatient woman. I want to know what the CT scan looks like. So what do? I take an image of the CT scan and just pop it into ChatGPT. And oh my
Wow.
God, Ben, it just told me all the issues that I have, what is the recommended. And, it was, I mean, I didn't take it to heart. There might be some, inaccuracies in it, but it was just phenomenal. And then when I went to the doctor, I think he said 75% of the and I asked him, is your job at risk? And he said, well, if you were able to get a result like that just by putting an image and telling you what's right and wrong, then maybe so. But anyway, that's a personal story. But on a serious note, I mean, the stories that we're seeing and the I would say the possibilities with AI is just, limitless. I think we talk a lot about um, prediction. So, for example, talking about health, what I just spoke about, I mean, I just saw I read an article that actually AI could help predict cancer 5 years in advance before you even get any symptoms of. So, I mean, that's breakthrough in terms of medicine. The other part that I really liked about AI is AI can help personalize medicine. So today, if you have a cold and I have a cold, most probably you're prescribed exactly the same medicine that I am. But that not be might not be right, because I might have sinuses while you have, hopefully not, but other
Yeah.
complications. So why isn't there a personalized medication for a Ben or for a Sharifas? And this is what AI can do. AI can predict earthquakes. AI can predict, weather forecasts. So, so people can be prepared. So you can save lives or save assets. So this is the beauty of AI. These are groundbreaking, I would say, solutions to problems that we've had for many, many years. And it's so heartwarming to feel that as an IT provider, we can help in one form or shape. Then you have other applications, smart cities. Yesterday, I was on a training again for AI because I'm going to have a certain license, and the company has requested that I do the training. So, smart cities, traffic lights, all this AI can help in terms of prediction, making sure that there's no, hassle-free or what's it called, rush hour-free locations. Or when it comes to the more, let's say, spoiled things in life, like hospitality and hotels, why can't AI predict that, if Ben is going to a certain hotel, this is what he likes. He likes a sea view, or he likes a certain room, or he likes a, really, I mean, these are things
Yeah,
that
that would be
AI can help.
good.
Yeah, they look at your profile and they say, well, Ben, every time he travels to this exotic location. He always wants a sea view. So these are the hotel rooms or hotels that I'm going to provide. So a personalized. So yeah, I mean, there's many applications. And like I said, some of them are really good for humanity, and some of them are always around customer experience and around, companies actually maybe maximizing revenues as well.
Yeah, there's going to be a balance, isn't there? And there always has been with technology enablement. Is in that, of course, big companies are going to look for productivity gains. Interestingly, in my research, I recorded it and it formed the first episodes of this podcast because I was like, right, I know the sellers that I'm working with doing kind of early sales stage engagement, prospecting, they need to know all this stuff. And what was
Hmm.
interesting was a few things one around healthcare and then one around physical AI. And when I first started running my first kind of AI focused kind of prospecting sessions for enterprise sellers, in healthcare, AI was being very much positioned as, oh, yeah, it augments the doctor's capability. And that seemed really
Mm.
sensible. This is not replacing the doctor. But
No, no,
then you
no.
realize, so still, we don't want that to happen. But then
No,
you
no, no, no.
realize that the AI, the computer vision that AI users can see things the doctor cannot see. So on
Yeah.
the episode I recorded about healthcare,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it can look at a scan of your retina and tell you if you have blood pressure, if you have type 2
Mm.
diabetes risk. That's the
Mm.
AI
Mm.
looking
Mm.
at your retina. Now,
Yeah,
humans
yeah.
simply cannot, no matter how good they are, they
Correct.
can't do that. And you
Yeah.
talked about, yeah, it can spot on your CT scan. You just dropped it into
Yeah,
ChatGPT, and
just the image, just the
yeah,
image. I know, not a doctor report. It's just an image. Yeah, and yeah,
yeah, and
phenomenal.
and and you're going to get a bunch of lives saved or improved just by that. And then with the
Exactly.
physical AI,
Phenomenal. Yeah.
yeah, the physical AI is what's coming next. And I guess you've probably been on that journey with Aruba, which is we had Internet of Things. And Internet of Things, everything's my dishwasher's got an IP address, and I
Yeah,
can
exactly. Exactly.
control my thermostat at home from my phone. And so we've had Internet of Things, but we didn't have the brain power. And that
Mm-hmm.
brain power on being able to analyze, well, what are all the measurements that we've had to date forever?
Correct.
around
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
this particular element of a physical device, and then what predictions can we make? And
Exactly.
that's what Jensen Huang calls that's what's coming next is physical AI, and that's
Mm.
the point where I think as a kind of a layperson learning about this, we're going to move from our view of AI being kind of chat GPT and large language models and aren't these things clever to now, as you say, we're going into smart cities. We've got more
Mm. Mm.
physical applications where you're going to see the
Mm.
AI in the physical environment. And that's what I think, that's when I think people are going to, if they haven't already had their aha moment about this thing is going to be, when everyone says it's kind of like the next industrial revolution,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
start
Yeah. Yeah.
seeing the robots and the autonomous vehicles and the AI in the hospital setting, I think people will really realize, yeah, this is
Yeah.
huge. And that's literally just, it's already being implemented, but it's literally just around the corner.
Absolutely.
What's your view
Absolutely.
on timeframes here for maybe what are your customers kind of looking at in terms of timeframes,
Yeah.
but actually
Yeah. Yeah.
adopting
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
type of technology?
Well, there's twofold to that. First of all, what I want to say is that we also need to understand that there is a responsibility around AI, and I think it's very important that we, take that into consideration. And in HPE, we called it kind of the AI ethics principles. So there needs to be some principles around AI, and the first one, it needs to be secure and privacy enabled, as in we need to make sure that people don't feel vulnerable, as in because your kind of the data that's being provided is based on data that people are inputting. So at the same time, you need to feel that your data isn't being shared with everyone. So I think privacy and security is very important. Second of all, it needs to be relevant, and like you said, the AI is something, your example about the doctor, that there are some things that he can't see, but at the same time, there needs to be a human element that can attest if this information is right or wrong. So it needs to be relevant, and we need to make sure that there's an accuracy, especially in the early days, because I heard there's a fake IA, there's a so this is
Yeah,
AI that's coming up with rubbish, and that you need to attest to. I think so. We need to be a little bit wary that not everything that we see in AI is 100% correct, especially in the early days until all the data is kind of validated. Another point that I think is very important, it needs to be inclusive. So, Ben, when you're taking an average of all the people, and obviously there's a majority, you need to make sure that the minority are not, cornered out or not considered in AI, because AI is based on a bunch of data collected from a lot of different sources. And if it's based only on a majority of people, then the minority will be excluded out. So I think that's also something that needs to be considered. So, and it needs to be responsible, like I said. So, it needs
yeah,
to be attested that this data is right. Talking about the time frames that you asked originally, like you said, I think healthcare for sure is at the forefront of AI. We see that there's a lot more interest from healthcare. And obviously public sector as well. I mean, here actually in Dubai this week, there is something called the Dubai AI Week, where they're just doing a whole set of conferences for all the public sector. How can they, bring AI into their daily lives? But I think what is important as well is not everyone is ready for AI today, because AI is based on data. And if your data isn't structured in a certain way, then you're not ready for AI. You need to structure your data so that you can turn this data into AI. So I think there's a lot of considerations, and AI needs to work for you. You shouldn't be working for AI. As in, companies shouldn't go out and say, oh, I need to have an AI practice, let's invest money and do all that just so that we have AI. You need to embrace AI if it's going to, like you said, change productivity, improve lives, or increase revenues, or customer loyalty, or there needs to be a purpose for it. And like you said, the cloud. everyone who said cloud, and then we saw people moving away from the cloud. It was in HPE, we call it the hybrid cloud, because in some cases you need to go to the cloud, and in some places you need to stay on-prem. So I think these are some of the considerations. For sure, we're in the midst of it all, right? It's a very exciting time, Ben. But yeah, I think it's going to take a while until we see everyone embracing it and having it as a part of their daily lives and their companies.
Yeah, it's going to need those big institutions, public sector and private sector to get the governance right. When you're talking about ethics, I always think about governance is the human oversight of what we're going to do with this data and how we're going to make sure it's fair and it's not got the inbuilt bias that if you take all of the data over the last 30 years, there's going to be a whole bunch of biases within that data, right? And just the AI then propagate those into the future, and that must not happen. That's probably going to require human oversight and an algorithm to detect those patterns. So I think that's a really good point that you make about the concern will be ethics, which has always been a concern, but not like this. This needs now. This is a whole new field, isn't it? I guess with AI and then security, and so if to personalize my healthcare, which is one of the examples you gave, because my healthcare needs to be different to yours, and maybe I sign a form to say, for my Garmin watch, all of my data from that's tracking my physiology throughout the day when I sleep. I tick the box. I'm happy for that to go into the National Health Service here in the UK, for example. Well, I'm happy with that because I'm happy to get my care personalised. But hey, where's my data going? What are you doing with it? Where's it living?
Correct.
And maybe I'm less bothered about that than my mum would be, or so you've got the technology. I think maybe what the situation that I'm seeing is you see the technology's kind of ready to go, but the air brakes need to be put on a bit for but we need to get this secure, and we need to look after the data. We need to figure out these biases. We need to have a new governance framework set up within our company, and so they're the good air brakes on just slowing down that adoption, but for the right reasons, not because the company or the public sector body doesn't have the vision. They have the vision, but now it's all about implementation. And that's where I think more than ever, public sector and private sector need really, really good partners, because it's always been the implementation.
And that's why I come back full circle to what you're trying to do here, which I really think is great, Ben, is that as people like us in the IT industry, we need to be subject matter experts, or what I always say, trusted advisors. So if we're in IT and can't talk about AI, the good and the bad and the ugly of AI, then, there's something wrong. So that's why it's very important that everyone understands AI. And that's why I love this podcast, because I think it's important for people to understand, why is it good and why we should embrace it, why we should be able to talk about it, but we should also be able to talk about the, like you call it, the air brakes or the considerations or the risks. And we need to be able to advise our customers way high above selling a product. This is like that I can talk to a bank or a hotel or a retail store and tell them, look, this is where I think you can implement AI. This is where I think you don't need AI. This is what we should be doing in our jobs on a daily basis.
Yeah, and that's quite a tough ask, isn't it? I guess if you're slightly more tenured in your career, like we are, we've been through that and we know we've got that muscle that we can train
Mm,
up
mm,
around
mm, mm, mm,
being
mm, mm.
confident in those conversations. But no more. I think it's been no more ever has it been more important than to work back from the business outcome. I think, as you say, if you start with "let me sell you this technology product," you don't understand enough detail about the problem that your customer actually needs to solve here, because it's not
Mm,
just the technology. Because we're seeing a whole bunch of kind of large public sector, private sector organisations will set up a centre of excellence. They'll run training models. Yeah,
mm, mm.
it's the deployment of those training models out in the wild, keeping them secure, uh, and delivering the actual business outcome that's going to be a challenge. And then I guess we kind of go full circle back to, but if you want to build confidence, you have to go and do your homework, which is where you started with
Yeah,
your
of
Amsterdam
course.
talk, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly, exactly. But look, it's exciting times. And like I said, I think we're all blessed to be in the IT industry because IT is moving the world. Our CEO calls it's the data currency. So, you have data, you're rich. How you use the data, to your own advantage is what makes or break, I guess, a company. And data means that we also need to read about AI and be able to articulate, what are the benefits, what is the future, and but also, what are the risks and what are the air brakes, like you call it.
Yeah, indeed. The and it's not shying away from the risks, is it? And I can't
No.
see any better way of kind of building that muscle and getting that confidence than talking to customers. And so I guess without kind of naming names, how are your kind of customers kind of typically viewing AI? Are they is do they have fixed views on it? Are they open to suggestions? How are you bringing value without naming names? How are you bringing value
Mm,
to your
mm, mm, mm,
customers as
mm,
they're
mm.
seeing the world from their perspective right now?
Mm, mm, mm. So I think you mentioned it, Ben. Obviously, the larger corporations, they've already got an AI committee inside. They're already discussing how they're going to embrace AI. I was having a discussion, I can say, with one of the big oil companies in the world, and they were saying, like you said, with the Internet of Things, with the oil rigs, with the number of people that they have, with where do they dig for oil, all the machinery. So they understand that AI can help them from a productivity perspective. And then obviously the distribution to all the petrol stations and all that. So there's a whole, machinery. So they kind of already know how they can use AI. We come in then in the discussions about, how we can provide the solutions to help. What kind of equipment do they need? So that's a
Mm.
discussion that's very different than, let's say, I don't know, a hairdresser at the end of the road who knows about AI but has no clue how can I use AI for my 10 employee company. So this is where we also need to be able to have a discussion about, this is where we think AI can help you. And then the second discussion is how can we help you as HPE Aruba Networking or HPE. So it really depends. Some companies, like I said, haven't really decided yet how they're going to use AI. So we have everything from those who know and those who've already implementing it to those who are just saying, okay, well, how can I benefit from it? And this is where we come in and can help them and guide them and tell them how they can do it. And of course, AI is an investment. So this investment needs to come with a return on investment. And that's where I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
companies need to be clever or smart in terms of when and where do I invest and for what benefit am I investing?
So that then it is a really good reminder to everybody that to go and meet with the oil and gas company or the financial services company or the hairdresser at the end of the road, and they're looking
Yeah.
to implement what can they do with AI. But certainly for those big enterprise customers, you as a sales professional need to research their market as well. How what oil, what gas? Because you just talked about, yeah, they've got to get it out of the seabed and find it, extract it, try and
Hmm.
keep the environment safe along the way, which would be nice, wouldn't it? Then somehow
Yeah.
it goes through this process, and then it arrives in the gas station so we can use it in our cars. And so, again, you don't need to be a detailed expert on the oil and gas industry, but you do need to review their market, don't? Sorry, you need to
Absolutely.
review how they operate and
Absolutely. Yeah.
have done that piece of work before you can have that AI discussion, even.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's a bit like when we used to say that if you're selling into the banking industry, you need to understand their business. So that's the same. But now with AI, you need to understand how AI can help them. So obviously you need to have that understanding of the industry. And then second of all, you need to understand what are the maybe AI use cases that are already being done by other corporations where you can share with them, because at the end of the day, they want to know, okay, how can I use AI? So if you have use cases, or that you can talk with experts who can say, well, if I look at this oil and gas company as a whole, this is where AI can save time, make efficiencies, increase customer loyalty, increase revenues, et cetera, et cetera. Again, what are you exactly trying to do? And I think that's where we need to go two steps deeper, Ben. We talk about AI
Right.
like I was when before Amsterdam. Ah, yeah, of course I can talk about AI. Okay, okay, you got 20 minutes to talk about AI. Okay, what am I going to do for 20 minutes? And then you go deeper to understand that it's not just do I want AI or not? It's a much more deeper question and a deeper answer.
Yeah, yeah, it is a lot deeper, isn't it? And uh, yeah, you've got on that journey from being told no, you can't be an engineer, to now you're worldwide, VP of sales for a huge company, technology company, and now you're leader in supporting the customer. And as you're talking there, I'm thinking, well, if I'm a big company or a public sector organization, I want people like Sherifa on my side and her team and helping us through this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Unless, I mean, maybe you've got the giant banking organizations, but most large companies, they're not going to be able to find all the resource for this.
No,
And
no,
have
no.
that creative ideas. And then it's going to be also be, well, it's not sufficient for me to have one partner, because yes, I'm gonna, as you said before, we're gonna live in this hybrid world. We're gonna have some of our data maybe run in public cloud, some's going to be
Mm,
on
mm,
premise, and we've got to manage all
mm,
of that, keep it
mm,
all secure.
mm.
And then I'm probably going to need some specialist AI software apps and
Of
providers as well.
course.
So you got this,
Mm-hmm.
I call it the ecosystem, which is what we used to call it in the outsourcing world, this
Yeah, yeah,
ecosystem
yeah.
of partners that
Mm-hmm.
every company is going to really need to deliver on the opportunity AI presents in as timely a fashion as possible, but but staying safe along the way. Um, uh, uh, so it's, I think the partnership is going to be huge here, Sharifa.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you saw the relationship that have with NVIDIA, because each one of us brings something to the table, right? So partnerships are for sure important, but that's always been the case in any kind of new, technology, like you say, revolution. It's always been the case that there needs to be partners together. But again, I think I keep on going back to the we are trusted advisors. We all work in IT. I can't imagine sitting with a customer and the customer asking me, so, what do you think about AI? And I say, well, I give them an example of my nose that I gave to you, my sinuses, and that's it.
Yeah.
That I'm not
Yeah.
doing, and I shouldn't be in my job where I am today. So I think it's important that all of us understand a lot more about AI, the advantages, the possibilities, the things that we can do with AI, but also, like I said, the risks and the consequences, of using it in not an accurate way.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really good checklist. And as you said, it's no good just being able to tell your customer about one use case. I think it's incumbent on anybody who's in sales or consulting now to go and really look at what are those use cases today that are already being delivered.
And guess what? You can use AI for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, tell me. Yeah, give me a list. Give me a link to
Exactly.
print
Yes,
out
yes,
a
yes.
PDF or
What are you
something.
talking about, Mr. AI or Mrs. AI?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you're not using AI to think with AI, be creative with AI, you're super missing out, aren't you? Are you? How do you use AI day to day, Sharifa?
Me, well, first of all, so like you said, on my mid-market and SMB role, I took it on in Jan, and because I'm taking on a new role, I said, you know what, Sharifa, let's just try to take a blank piece of paper. What does mid-market and SMB really mean? So I've been researching a lot on what does mid-market and SMB mean. I've also been researching how mid-market and SMB could use AI. Thus, my example of a hairdresser, because an hairdresser is considered an SMB market, which I'm responsible for. So how can they use AI? So from a professional perspective, how can I structure my team? What should I measure them on? So it's really, instead of me going on to 10,000 research, and the great thing is that when I ask the question, it comes back with the sources so that I can see, is this on a abc.com or is it on a Forbes, on a BBC, something that I believe has a name behind it. So on business, I've been using that, how to structure a presentation, because I need to present to team members about this new team that I'm trying to organize. So on a business perspective, I've been using that. I'm also checking out what the competition are doing. I'm being very
Yeah.
blunt and honest here. What are the competition doing in that space? On a personal level, like I gave you an example of my medical report. So I'm using it a lot for more of a health. Also, we're looking at starting a personal business when we retire. So we're also using AI. What are the ingredients of a good business plan? How do we go to a joint venture? So that's how I'm using it day to day so far. Recipes. Sometimes I've got, okay, what am I cooking today? What can I do with this or that? And it's magic. Just shares. These are the 5 simple recipes. So yeah, it's endless, but you need to know when to stop, because I'm a very curious woman. I could sit and talk with
Yeah,
AI
I
or
know.
ChatGPT, and apparently I heard when I was in a conference, and they were saying that there's a good sorry, a kind, is it a kind AI and an evil AI? Or a crazy
Okay.
AI, sorry, a crazy
Crazy AI.
AI. Yeah, crazy AI.
Crazy.
So there's an app, I can't remember the name of it now, but apparently it gives you all these wacky ideas rather than the calm AI. So yeah, there's even different personalities of AI as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think you make some really good points there, and you're using it for everything, right? From
Yeah.
work to recipes, and I will say I have ChatGPT and the voice. When you can actually talk to
Oh, yeah.
ChatGPT and it talks back to you.
Okay.
It's got some limitation per month because it said, "Oh, I already got to the place where it said, "Hey, you're running out of
Oh,
minutes
really?
left on your plan."
No way.
Because when I do
Okay.
like a school run or a dog walk, just
Mm,
something that's kind of mundane, and
mm.
I'm like, I want to get some work bits done, and as you say, consider different things that I need just have a list for, and can you just help me
Mm,
with
mm,
this?
mm, mm, mm,
I'm
mm, mm,
talking
mm.
to it. So I've got my AirPods in and
Wow.
I'm now
So
talking to the
it's your
AI.
best friend now, Ben?
Yeah, it's my it's my yeah. The secret is out that my new best friend is ChatGPT, but it's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
useful and it really has developed and it's so helpful. I don't want the crazy AI. I just want the sensible one, please.
And
I
I think,
don't.
Ben, it's also important to understand, to limit yourself using it because you could just go into a whole tunnel and just be you could actually be brain dead and just use it. So I think it's important that we understand when to use it and when to not use it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and you made a good point, which I've learned trying to use AI as research for this podcast was a real double edged sword. It was giving me
Mm,
lots of great customer use cases, different
mm.
examples, and then within that list, then you'd say, "Give me." Then I learned to say, "You mentioned this. Give me the source link for where
Mm,
you've got."
mm.
Wait, yeah, give me the source link for where you've got that
Yeah,
piece of information
yeah.
about Mark Zuckerberg saying this, and this was a real example
Example.
because it said, "Oh,
Okay.
Mark, this was so important to Meta. Mark Zuckerberg even spoke about it." And so I said to it, "Where's the Mark Zuckerberg quote?" And it said,
Really?
"Oh, actually, I'm not. I'm not 100% sure." And I'm like,
No.
"Dude, come on, you
Oh,
can't be." So it will. You
interesting.
got to be very
Interesting.
careful on prompt and you've got to be very careful on quadruple checking its sources. You can't just take
Exactly.
its word
Exactly,
for it.
exactly. Because imagine, Ben, if again going back, if I had put that CT scan, it said these are the issues that you have, and I was to take the medication based on just an AI report, that's also a bit scary, right? So that's what I'm saying. We have to understand where it can help and where are the limitations and where we need to make sure that the information is correct. I mean, if the recipe goes wrong, okay, we
You're
can throw
okay.
that in the bin and do another one and order in. But taking the wrong medication isn't really the resting. So I think we need to also
Yeah,
understand where to
yeah.
use it and where not to.
Let's keep humans in the loop. Hey, that would be really good. Look, it's been brilliant talking to you, Sharif. There's so
Thank
many
you, Ben.
learning points.
Pleasure. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask you one final question. Had this tremendous career, the hardest possible start, being told you couldn't do this. Would you say that would be the toughest lesson that you've learned in your career, Sharifa?
Oh, wow. That's a big one. Um, the toughest lesson. I think I always thought if I don't get what I want, that when I was younger, if I didn't get what I was on, that's it. It's the end of the world. And I always discovered after that that was done in that way for a reason. It's just that we don't see that reason. I mean, if I wasn't rejected, I maybe wouldn't have been so determined to prove. So, you know what I mean? If I
Mm,
wasn't rejected in some other jobs that I applied for, maybe I didn't have that self drive to again prove that I can. Um, so I can't say it's tough, but it was a lesson for sure, Ben, that again, sometimes we hit some walls and we think it's the end of the world. And it's really important the way that we react to it, that, because the reaction is where you're going to move up or you're going to improve. If you don't react, then there's no progression. So yeah, I think that's how I
yeah.
would answer your question. Yeah,
Yeah. No, I know it's a tough question, but sometimes you get the best
I liked
answers.
it.
And as you're talking, I'm thinking, and we'll close out, but I'm thinking, yeah, you use that as fuel. That was fuel
True,
on the
true.
fire.
Oh
And no
yeah.
doubt, and look, we've all been there, and we will all go there again with stuff that happens that it didn't go right, and one day being down in the dumps, and then you go, right, what did I learn from it, and use it as
What am I going to
uh,
do about it? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
take
What am I
take
going to do about
ownership,
it?
take action.
Yeah.
But yeah, fuel. on the fire. So, Sherifa, look, it's been brilliant talking to you as
Thank you,
ever. So, thank you
Ben.
for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Oh,
Definitely, I'm going to try and drag you on again at some point in the future. It's a brilliant conversation. And yeah, I look forward to catching up with you soon, wherever that may be and what
yeah,
format. But no doubt our paths will cross again soon. So, Sherifa,
I'd love to join.
where do people find you if they want any advice, any mentoring, any help whatsoever?
I'm
Where
on
do people find
LinkedIn.
you?
I think it's Sherifa Hady, so I'm on LinkedIn. A lot of people message me, and yeah, I think that's the best way for people to communicate with me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. We'll drop
Okay,
your LinkedIn profile into the
okay,
show notes. So just anyone listening to this, go click on Sherifa, connect up with her, give her any feedback, ask her any questions. She's
yeah,
brilliant
love
person
to hear the
to help
feedback.
you. Yeah, perfect. All right, Sherifa, it's been
Thank
brilliant. I
you.
shall
Thanks a
see you
lot,
again
everyone.
soon.
Thank
Bye
you,
bye. Bye
Ben.
bye.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.